years ago, I decided it would be important to learn a homesteading skill of making bread. I've heard all kinds of horror stories of people who couldn't make bread, and it is one of the things that you depend on for your daily food. So I found this recipe. This one was printed off of Mother Earth News online, but then I found out they also printed on the bag of flour, so it can't be too much of a secret recipe. It's worked out very well for us. Little bit different process. I don't know how to say the word properly. They call it Master Boule bread, B-O-U-L-E. That's how I say it anyway. But it's got a good taste and a good feel to it. Only 5 ingredients, and if you count the water, it's something I'd like to show you today. The recipe starts off with 3 cups of warm water, like they said, around just over body temperature. So let me get that real quick. Here we go. It calls for a tablespoon and a half of sea salt, coarse ground. They say. I've made it with regular salt and it worked just fine. A tablespoon and a half of yeast, and then you mix in this warm water and just stir that in. Doesn't have to be stirred thoroughly or anything like that. It calls for 6.5 cups of bread flour. So I'll try to measure these carefully and level them off with a knife to not grind or pack them in. Y'all can count with me. There's one. You don't want to pack flour in when you're measuring dry ingredients except for brown sugar, I'm told. We'll get these counted out. This will be 2. We've got 5 cups of flour in here and started to just try to mix a little bit in. And now I have cup 6 and a half. And the idea is just to stir this in. You don't have to knead it with a K, knead. And you can just stir this in until everything is moistened. And then we'll let it set for a couple of hours so that it can rise. And then we can either bake bread from it or we can put it in the refrigerator lightly covered. You don't want it to be tightly covered like on a Pyrex dish with a glass or with a lid on it that seals. Those are great for other things, but not for this. You want it to have some room for the yeast to act and for it to rise a little bit. And so we'll leave this in the fridge, probably bake a loaf tomorrow. The baking process is interesting, but as you see, I've just about got all of the dry stirred in here. In the past, sometimes I missed some, but it just seems to be very forgiving. And we'll come back in a couple of hours, and this will be probably doubled in its size. We'll cover it up, put it in the fridge, and tomorrow night we can have some fresh bread for our supper. And we're back. It's been about 2 hours, maybe a little bit longer actually, and now we're going to look and see what is hiding under the mystery towel here. What happened to our bread dough? Ta-da! Look at there! It has really risen and is looking good. That's all you have to do. From this point on, we'll put it in the fridge tonight, cover it up loosely so that it doesn't dry out, and then tomorrow we'll take a portion of this out. The recipe says that it makes about 4 one-pound loaves. Usually for the 2 of us, we make even smaller loaves so that we don't have so much left over. And so tomorrow will be fresh bread day, and we'll show you how that process goes. Hope you enjoy this. Hello again. We're back in the kitchen. Our bread dough has been rising and setting in the refrigerator for about 20 hours now, so we're ready to go to the next stage, and that is letting it rise on a pizza peel. Instructions say to liberally sprinkle the pizza peel with cornmeal. This will keep it from sticking, and so that is done. Looky here. After almost a day in the refrigerator, this is what it looks like. They suggest that you just dust the top of this batch with flour and then take a serrated knife and divide out a portion. To be honest, I don't think I've usually used the serrated knife idea just because it's just as easy to do it with my hands. Usually we just dig out a portion that would be right for our size, family, or serving. I have coated my hands with a little bit of flour just to keep this from sticking too badly, and it's very stretchy. What we want to do is just to stretch this a little bit, turn the edges, if there were any, towards the center, roll it up towards the center, and then place this on our pizza peel. This will rest for about 40 minutes before we put it in the oven to bake. So we'll see you in 40 minutes. It's been 40 minutes since we set our bread dough out to rise and to adjust to room temperature, I suppose. It doesn't usually rise a whole lot or even visibly rise, but it will do the rest of its rising once it's in the oven. Remember, we put it on the cornmeal, and now we're going to dust it just slightly with a little bit of flour so that we can do some slash marks with a serrated knife again. This makes it look a little bit fancier. So the oven was set at 450 degrees to start preheating the pizza stone while this bread was rising. So 20 of the 40 minutes our oven has been preheating and heating up that pizza stone. When this gets slid onto the pizza stone, that baby's already going to be hot. We'll also put a jelly roll pan or baking pan with some water in it that sort of helps the oven to stay moist. So here we go. We'll put this into the oven on the hot pizza stone, and I'll come back in about 20 minutes. This bread should be done and ready for us to have for supper. Watch this. There you go. It was a smooth slide, so that's a good thing. Well, here it is, the end of the baking time. It's been in the oven for 30 minutes at 450 degrees. Let's pull it out and see what happens. It looks good to me. You get a good look at that? We'll probably leave it on top of the stove for several minutes while it cools, and this pizza stone is so hot, so I'm leaving it on the surface of the stove that can handle those kinds of temperatures. Looking forward to it for our supper tonight. This is the end of this video. Please give us a thumbs up, subscribe there in the left-hand corner. Give us some comments. Let us know if this is something that you would like to try in the future, or if this is something that you could refer to somebody else that might enjoy baking their own bread, having the ability to be more self-sufficient on their homestead. See you next time.